Diane Abbott.
Mr Deputy Speaker, I'm very pleased indeed to have the opportunity to speak in this debate, because contrary to the suggestion of some of our honourable friends that this is a pettifogging issue on which ordinary people are not really interested, I have had very many letters on this exact issue, and I am glad to be able to speak on behalf of my constituents. One of my honourable friends said earlier, whose cause is served by publishing this legal advice? I would put in response to this question a very simple answer. I believe the cause of democracy will be served by publishing this legal advice. We have heard that the argument of government ministers that there is no precedent for publishing the Attorney General's advice is wholly specious. The member for Stone, in his comprehensive speech, set out all of the precedent going back, I believe, to the 19th century. We knew already, before the member of Stone illuminated us on historic precedent, that the government itself had partially revealed the advice by presenting a summary. And I myself, not being a lawyer, but I myself cannot see the difference between publishing a summary of the advice and publishing the whole advice. And of course the other argument we've heard from government ministers, and I hope we won't hear it again this afternoon, that somehow the government is comparable to a private client of a lawyer, is completely tendentious. If anything, as an honourable friend said earlier, the government is not the client, we are the client, therefore we are entitled to see advice which actually was sought in our name. And you know, the honourable friends have said, you know, why this concern about the legal advice? Well, another reason why there is concern about the legal advice is it is widely acknowledged that actually the most expertise about the law in relation to war and foreign policy doesn't actually rest with the Attorney General, who's a very distinguished commercial lawyer, but not an expert on these matters. The greatest resource and expertise on these matters lies with the Foreign Office. And is it pure coincidence that the Deputy Legal Advisor to the Foreign Office on these matters resigned on the eve of war? Could it be that within the Foreign Office there are uncertainties that were not reflected in the summary of the Attorney General's advice that was actually published? And it's also the case as has been referred to as well.
An honourable friend would agree with me as well that at the United Nations almost every person who was asked their opinion, including the Secretary-General Kofi Annan, did not give his blessing to the legality of this war. And they really are the experts on whether or not we go to war.
I'm grateful to my honourable friend. So you have, on the eve of war, the resignation of the Deputy Legal Advisor at the Foreign Office, Patricia Wilmot, something which was not remarked on, I think, sufficiently at the time. You have, days before the war, the Chief of Defence Staff, Admiral Sir Michael Boyce, insisting on a simple statement of the legality of the war. And that does give the lie to honourable friends' claim that the legality was transparent all along. If the Chief of Defence Staff was demanding a definitive statement as to legality, that means there was uncertainty amongst the quarters that were best placed to know whether matters were certain or not, our armed forces. And when again, honourable friends and others say, why are we obsessed with this pettifogging issue? When honourable friends say, why are we obsessed with this pettifogging issue? Why are we looking backwards? I think not just honourable members, but the British public does not, values our armed forces and does not want to feel that we sent our armed forces to a war which was actually illegal. And I don't call that a pettifogging or a trivial matter. I call that a matter which goes to the heart of the framework of international law. And I say further than this, we are seeing the uncertainty and the bloodshed and the attacks on our forces in the region. And I believe one of the reasons for the bloodshed and the uncertainty and instability is a widespread belief internationally that this was not a legal war, this was not a military action taken on the basis of a genuine international consensus. This was a war undertaken unilaterally by the US and Britain. This is an issue, whether honourable friends like it or not, which still concerns the British public. This issue the legality of the war has a bearing of the legitimacy of the actions of our troops seen going forward. This is an issue that will not go away. There is a shadow hanging over this government, and all the bluster and threats against my honourable friends and intimations that we're going to be taken in front of special tribunals and asked to give evidence as to, well, oh yeah, or were we ever a socialist? All the bluster and the threats will not make the shadow go away. There is a shadow hanging over this government. It is a shadow of the war with Iraq, and the shadow is a widespread perception, not just in this House, not just in opposition benches, not even just on the back benches, a widespread perception that we took our troops, we sent our troops into an illegal war. And I believe that if the government is confident of the legal basis of the war, if the government is confident of its case, it has absolutely nothing to fear by completing the process it started and publishing in full the Attorney General's advice.
Alex Salmon.
Mr Deputy Speaker, it's a great pleasure